Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Photoshop by Eduonics. In this lecture we're going to be going into drawing with a Wacom tablet, and I've heard it pronounced Wacom and I've heard it pronounced Wacom. I'm just going to say Wacom from here on. Anyway, if you have one, this tutorial is for you. If you don't, I highly recommend getting one, particularly if you're doing photo restoration or illustration. I'm sure you probably already have it on your list if you're doing illustration. But you can get them online for about $100, and that's a $300 piece of equipment. If you go on Amazon and get a used one, an Intuos 4, I'd recommend getting an Intuos 4 and then buying an art pen. And I'll be using the art pen in this tutorial, so it'll have features that you may not have on if you have just the regular pen. But I'm using the Intuos, so I'll have all the different features to show you. And I wouldn't worry about getting a Cintiq or anything. Just go ahead and get the little black cheap Intuos. So once you start using it, you immediately get used to it. But anyway, if you already have one, then by all means keep watching. You may have noticed some annoying circles on your screen. I have these posts here. There's a product if you have Windows 7 called Visiblur, and it has this little button that says make everything good and another button that says make everything bad, and it literally does all these different things that you see right here at once. And this is for Windows 8 down here. Now here's another little link for Windows 7 if you want to just do it yourself right here. So everything above this line is Windows 7, everything below it is Windows 8. Anyway, if you have Windows 8, then go through all these steps. This was on the Microsoft site. Here's the website for it, right here, for all these steps, and all this down here. So just go ahead and pause that and read this if you need to do that. And if you have a Macintosh, then if you just go onto Amazon, there's some Windows computers, and you can probably get a pretty good deal for your Mac. Just make sure you get one with Windows 7. But you should definitely sell that if you have a Macintosh. Now, I'm going to get started with a drawing I'm doing currently. Now, if you're used to, and this is one of the products I have, I just need to draw a rhino. I'm using this as a model because it's the one they wanted. There's a few differences with using this tablet. I don't like to trace, but I do like to use an image for reference. However, to get proportions in there will be the first thing I do, and I'll do that with a really bright. It won't be part of the end drawing. And I have this set to rotate, and the first thing you'll notice is even though I'm rotating it, as soon as I take my mouse off, it'll update. That it doesn't show up on the final one. So I just want to get in some proportions loosely. I might want to switch my pen here. Now keep in mind I have all of the different tools that Wacom offers as far as having the art pen. I have rotate, I have pressure, and tilt. And if you have rotate, if you have the art pen, it kind of, in my opinion, it takes the place of tilt. Although if you don't have it, just go ahead and use tilt for a lot of things you'd be using rotate for, like rotating the angle of the brush. But I'm just going to lay this out real quick with magic. And there we go. Now I'm just going to show you one more product that's called Lazy Nezumi. I own this version of Lazy Nezumi. It's only $30, so it's totally worth it, and that's like for lifetime, and it's always updating too, so they're still making it. It has all these options that will help you smooth out your curves. And if you're using this on a pen tablet, which this is a pen tablet, but it's hooked up to a monitor right now, we have this little setting which you may just love. That's hide when drawing or hide always, and that's your cursor. See here, I have mine now. I put it to hide to drawing, so all I can see is the path it's leaving. And just so you know that what it's doing is it has these settings. You can make you can take your time making your curves, kind of like the name suggests. But they have a free trial version. It'll smooth out your lines if you're not used to how precise the Wacom is, Wacom, and it has all these great settings. It's just a good tool to have. Somebody referred to it, and I heard it said as "lazy Nezumi to the rescue" again. People say that on all these forums where people are having problems with this or that in drawing. But I'm going to get right into the settings. The only thing is, this will slow down your computer if you're not using Photoshop at the moment. If you have it minimized in the background, you're not using Photoshop, it'll slow your computer down. But to start out with, F5 is a shortcut key for brushes, and we already went over this, but I'm just going to go straight to the Wacom settings, because there is brushes is already a tutorial, so go ahead and check that out. But here I'm going to show you some of the more common ones. Well, first let's talk about the 6D art pens. So when I use one of these, a little window will pop up, and they're great if you look closely. And I'm not getting the window at the moment. There's normally a little window that pops up, and so if you don't have rotate, if you press the center button on your panel that brings this up, you can set this to rotate, and that's going to rotate my actual screen. But you can set these to different things in your panel or in your options here. Clicking the top button. Anyway, back to just the settings. You typically have about 3 brushes. One for sketching, which is going to be mimic a pencil, and I wouldn't recommend really using any of these. But anyway, the 6D brushes, they're meant to mimic these things already. If you have a fast computer, then that's great. You can see kind of the pencil angle as I'm holding it there. I have it tilted to the side all the way almost, and here I have it relatively straight up and down. And I'm going to lock my layer so I don't accidentally draw on it. If you just turn it off, now a little bit of lag is normal, especially with these brushes. I'm not really going to go into these crazy brushes right here. Mostly I'm going to stick to like the ones that are kind of tried and true. But as far as changing your angle on the fly, you can set up like a bunch of brushes. Kind of like this, so that you can just alternate between them really quickly. There's currently, as far as I know, there's no way of just doing it on the fly, but that's one option. But go ahead and research that if you want to find out more about it, of course. I want to get back to this. So you have your sketching brushes, which are typically, they're going to have a little bit of shape dynamics, meaning the size hooked up to pen pressure. I always like to hook up angle, even though these won't have angle. This will have So I'm not really going to worry about it actually, but and a little bit of transfer also set to pen pressure, although I like to keep the minimum a little bit high. So you have thinner lines. In this you can set the default shape or the default size. So 10 pixels is pretty good default size if you like to work in higher res. Otherwise 4 is pretty good. You want to go that much lower, you'll get lines that are just invisible almost. And keep in mind when you're zoomed in that if you see that your lines are nice and crisp and thin and everything, when you zoom out you might not be able to see them. So back to this, and I can show you the sketching. Now I have a color picker set to the shortcut key N. Is something you'd actually have to do. I think it's really useful. But here I'm just really thin lines, and the good thing about sketching too is that your lines are go a lot faster when you're making them. So great for cross hatching. Now I'm not using the I have a custom cursor also set up in Lazy Nezumi. It makes this a lot easier. But if you like, pressing caps lock on your screen will set your cursor to be more visible. Let me go ahead and turn that off though. Actually, the whole thing's off. When it's on, it'll completely disappear, but you can also set a custom cursor. As you can see, it's very tiny. And if you're using a pen on the actual screen, you obviously want something like this, or if you're using the Cintiq for some reason. If you have like a little tablet, like a little Slate 7 or something with this on it, Lazy Nezumi really helps. But back to the 3 brushes that you'll typically have, that's one of them. Then you'll have like a painting brush. And everybody's different, of course. And let's take a look at the preset manager now. Let's brush presets. So I have this brush here, which is kind of my painting brush. Now when you have caps lock on, you can't see the brush outline, but when you take it off, and I'm just going to take this off so you can see better. This would typically be the next stage I would go into. And the great thing about this is you can work in tandem with your opacity key. See, those were really dark. I like to just keep my hand on the numbers, on the row of numbers. But this has rotate, obviously, if you have that. If you don't, just changing the angle. Like in those ways that I showed you, should help. But by setting it to a lower opacity, I can come in and I can get a little bit more control. And by the time I'm doing my second coat, that's really the only other one I need. And obviously I can change my opacity on the fly pretty easily. And when you hit 1, for instance, it'll do up here, if you pay attention, I just hit 1 once, this goes 10, 2, 3. If I start speeding it up and hit 4, 5, it'll do 45, 97, If you hit 1, it's 10. If you hit 0, it's 100. 09 would be 9, 05, or 4 is 4. So 0 is 100 on this, just so you know. So it works really nicely. 1 to 0, all the way left to right is 10 to 100. They assume that you'll never put it on 0. Because of your edits now, when you're in a drawing mode, you might want to change your history states so that way you can get way more undos, because they won't take as much size. So in the preferences, and I have that tablet cursor on so I can't see anything. Under performance, you have your history states. Where is it? Right here. And you can set those a little higher. I'm going to keep mine on 12, but I'm turning lazy into zooming off again. Like that's mostly just for wanting to show you. It's mostly just from a tablet. But here I'm going to go ahead and lock all these layers, and that would actually be drawing on this layer. So, you know, but use your shortcuts when you're drawing. It's really important because you can just have one hand on the left side of the keyboard, and that's how they're kind of spaced naturally. And then you can have your other hand doing everything else. Aside from that, it's just the next step is just to lay in values and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and make this in a different video, and I'm just going to show you the different techniques I would to do a basic drawing, getting basic values in, and then how to smooth those out and everything if you even want to, and then apply effects, which should create a cool look. So after you've already hand drawn this, you know, that's. But let's just take a look at a few more things here. Like in the brush presets, you're going to want to spend some time just going over this. So these presets, I think I already showed you how to use this panel, but you have all these ones that you can supplement with. And for doing textures and stuff, I encourage using a lot of these, but I'll show you that in the next video. If I go to append, it'll add them. It's pretty handy. And you want to generally delete the ones you're not using. And see, some of these are you're going to want to modify like a lot of these just for pressure and stuff like that. Like I'm going to want to do almost all of them for angle. So I go here to angle and I set it to rotation. As soon as I click the shape settings, it's on like that. Check my other things. And of course, jitter is the amount of randomness, and I don't recommend it. It's nice for some things like noise. So a little bit of jitter is good. Keeps everything looking fresh. But just like in regular drawing, you know, people pay a lot of money to have things that aren't random. So I mean, considering it's all digital, you don't have to buy anything super fancy to get rid of randomness. It's all very precise as it is. But you know, add 1 or 2% in every once in a while to make it look more real. Pay attention to your settings here. Like, it looks like I have a bunch of different strokes happening at once, and I do. They each have a little bit of jitter on them. It's just a matter of finding out where everything is. And obviously the brush tip shape comes into play. But really familiarize yourself with this and make yourself a library that has all these things. Like we went over to the first 2 brushes that people use. And there's a third one which is supposed to be painting and like fine lines, but it depends on what kind of style illustration you do. Obviously, if you see these and just imagining the kind of settings you can apply, like having the scattering set to pen pressure. So I'll come in here and I'll let go, and it's a really loose line. So all the different things are, and all the different pens you can make. You know, sky's the limit. So go ahead and play around with that. In the next video I'm going to be showing you how to draw. I'm using this rhino as an example, although I've already drawn all over it. I'll just have to clean it up a little bit, and I'll be doing it in stages. So, but anyway, play around with that, and this is a lot where you're going to have to research, but you'll be spending the most time setting up your brush presets. Use textures a lot, so keep that in mind if it's something you think you can use. Keeping in mind you can also apply opacity or anything to any of these textures in any different ways, especially if you have an art pen or if you have a regular grip pen. You have two different things you can adjust. That brings me to the last thing. I'm just going to show you with the shape dynamics that you can also set this rotation, and it takes a little bit to get used to, but pen tilt is the other thing that the grip pen has. It has tilt and it has pressure. There's also fade and initial direction if you don't even have a pen, or if you have a pen you'd prefer initial direction, and I'll show you what that is. This is probably the wrong brush to show you on, so I'll do this and I'll turn size jitter off. Now the angle jitter on pen tilt, so I'm holding it straight up in the air, straight up and down. If I tilt it to the right and then back towards me, and I'm making a circle now with the back of the pen, the eraser, and now the eraser is in the 9 o'clock on the circle, and it's getting back to midnight, and as you can see it'll wobble if you're not holding it all the way out. So you generally hold it out with a pretty steep angle, but you can change it. And if you're doing little circles, it'll geek it out a little bit. Still pretty useful. And then of course there is initial direction. Which makes the initial direction the default direction of this. And there's just regular direction, which is pretty cool. Kind of keeps it the same. And if I take that off, obviously it's got that whole thing going. So initial direction is good for like swiping and quick lines. But anyway, the next one I'm going to be drawing the rest of this rhino, so you already saw the outline portion, so just keep watching and keep practicing and build your presets up. Get them just the way you want them.